Welcome to the Love the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Bell, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas. Yes, I promise this is actually me. I know it does not sound like me. That's because that holiday bug that seems to be hitting everybody in North Texas right now has come for yours truly. I am also joined by Brian Broaddus, former Super Bowl winning NFL scout. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation 2 to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas, and the pre and post game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And Brian, how's it going? You seem happy. You seem healthy. How's it going?
Man, I thought this show had a lot more toughness to it.
Hey, toughness is showing up here.
I thought, I thought there was. It's a full on grind. You play hurt, and I do appreciate you playing a little hurt today. I really do. Yeah. I'm
playing hurt.
I'm playing a lot hurt. It sounds like.
It's honestly, it's not even that. It's my voice is gone. Yeah. I'm doing all right. It's just the voice is shot at this point. Yeah. So honestly, I think it's that I've had to work that extra half hour on the morning show this week with Sean Sharif out. That extra half hour, like this is what I was trying to avoid the last year by not showing up at 5:30, was making sure that my voice wasn't taxed, Brian. So that's what we're looking at. So we're going to take a look at the Lions today. There's obviously the big game coming up this weekend, the induction of Jimmy Johnson into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. But before we do that, I wanted to take a closer look at something that you've suggested recently, Brian, here on the show. I know you've suggested on the G-Bag Nation. And that's the idea of these home road splits. And some of what could be at play here being that here we go cadence being something that's a little more difficult for them to execute on the road in loud environments, and that then causing some issues in terms of their communication, specifically along the offensive line. So I think for a lot of fans, when they hear the talk about cadence, they think of it as a starting gun at a race or something, and it's just okay. Yeah, it's the magic words that say go. Why is that such a big deal? Why would everything be so thrown off by that? Because everybody, it's not like you're having a bunch of guys who are false starting every time. So as long as they're getting the snap off, what does that affect? So I was hosting on DallasCowboys.com and 105 Through the Fan on Wednesday night with Kevin Hagelin from 105 Through the Fan, Nate Newton, and Dave Campo on the Cowboys Crosstalk. And after you had brought this up, I wanted to bring that line of thinking up to Nate Newton and get Nate to explain what is the importance of the cadence and how could that be affected on the road. So, Brian, I'm going to play that real quick. This is a longer cut. It's about 3.5 minutes, but I'm going to play this, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. So this is Nate Newton. This is me setting up Nate, and then Nate's reaction to the discussion of cadence on Wednesday night.
Nate, one of the things that's become a discussion point is maybe it's the communication between the offensive line. Maybe it's the cadence, that cadence that we've all started to hear, the here we go, wide 80 set up. And it's become almost memed on the internet. But when you just break that down for people listening, the importance of the cadence and why could that potentially cause so much disruption to the quality of the offense between home and road?
This is going to take a little time now.
Hit it. We hit it early enough.
Do you want to get...
No, I want you to answer that question.
When we used to get out of the huddle fast, that didn't mean because we got out of the huddle fast, we was going to run a play fast. A lot of times you want to give your quarterback a chance to survey. More importantly, you want to give your center a chance to see the 5 guys that we're going to take. Normally the 4 down guys and the 1 linebacker. Or if they're running a 3-4, the 6 guys, because when then Moose would be involved. Mm-hmm. So the coach, and that would give us defensive offensive lineman a chance, our center, to step out to say, okay, we got 55 to 33. And the quarterback, okay, they got 55 to 33. So that alert the wide receiver out there that if this 33 come along with 55, it's a hot route. You break this thing off right now. So now, but the quarterback may change the play. Boom, boom, boom. He may flip it all the way to the other side. So now we're looking at 55 still, but now we got 26 over here. This receiver got to be alerted to it. This tight end, now, because we moved the power, this tight end got to be alerted to it. Clock get down about 12. Ready. Here we go. Play is in lock. It's locked now. We're not going to change it. And now you're asking a lot from your offensive line, and you're asking a lot from your receivers. And when it's loud, something can be lost in communications. But the reason I wanted Coach to go, because what Jimmy did when we go to New Orleans, we stop with all this ready.
Yes.
We get our best 5 running plays with 2 variations off our best 5 running plays. Now, a lot of our receiving stuff stayed in place because we wasn't a West Coast offense. So what we called in the huddle, we could adjust to anything on the field. So what I'm trying to say here is sometimes you got to simplify, especially on your defense, so guys can play fast. All your players are single high with cover corners. You changed a little bit last week because of Miami and all of his speed, but this should be very easy. Now it comes down to whether your defensive linemen want to straight rush or run games. If you're running games and that tight end changes, now all of a sudden them games get a little shaky and everybody can get a little lost. But coach them. I used to hear Jimmy tell them, why don't you simplify it so our players can continue to play fast? All of these things we've heard before, but what you have to do is prepare your players for these type situations. When we used to have a loud, like New Orleans, or Seattle, even when you go on to play the Steelers, if we had to hold hands,
right.
If we had to let our center say green, 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 and then we'll all go 1,001, 1,002. We all move together. We practice this, right. And you have to dedicate yourself. Forget what the Players Association talking about. Finding you, U.S. players got to put that extra time in. U.S. players, forget the coaches. U.S. players.
So I think that was a really good explanation from Nate Newton in terms
That's an
of
all-pro answer right there.
It is that is a 6-time Pro Bowler right there, a guy who hopefully he'll get thrown up in the Ring of Honor here soon one day. But I thought that was a really great answer from Nate Newton in terms of just talking about, hey, this is how it can impact things when the cadence is off, or if you miss a call and you don't understand that this is slid here, you don't understand which guys are being accounted for here. And also how he talked about that when they were in New Orleans, and he's literally saying they were holding hands on the line of scrimmage.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so loud.
Right.
And you hear the center call, and then they're just in their heads are 1,001, 1,002, go. And that they have to do those sorts of things. Do you think, Brian, that you've obviously suggested, hey, maybe this is part of what has caused the issue? And I know John Machota from The Athletic, he came on this week. He thought that was a great theory, that was something that has caused problems for them on the road. Do you think that that's something that they can potentially identify and repair in time for the playoffs? Or is that something where there may not be a magic cure-all for that?
Well, there's not a magic cure-all for it right now. But the one thing that they're benefiting, and the reason I brought this up was there were times, like in the Buffalo game, for example, where a twist stunt that normally Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith usually just pick up. Usually it's just a simple, and sometimes with Tyron, it's not communication. It's just kind of a given. But, maybe you want to communicate the stunt. They end up trying to man the stunt, meaning they went when the tackle went out, that Tyler Smith went with him, and when the end came around, Tyron Smith went with him. So now you're colliding and guys are getting picked. Tyron got picked, and now, the looper is on to Dak Prescott. And I started thinking, I'm like, man, that's something that you don't see that happen at home. You just don't see that stunt problem happen at home. They usually sort it out. They pick it up. The thing that also got me too was how deep they were getting into the count. And Dak was just pounding his foot on the turf and clapping his hands. Give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. So you don't see that at home. You see a real smoothness to the way, we're at home game. We could hear Dak with the, here we go. And then they get into the cadence and ball, and everything runs really, really smooth. But, they've been having some problems. I will say this. In the Miami game, I was surprised with Adoga in some of the problems they had. Just, there was one time there, and Nate and Coach Campo brought it up, where Steele blocked down to take the blitzer. And you're taught as an offensive lineman that, like, to slide inside, take the first threat. The blitzer's the first threat, and they let the furthest guy from the ball go. That's the quarterback's man. Well, if you watch the All-22, it's a 3rd and 6, and you see Cooks sees the blitzer to his side, and he looks for the ball inside. And Dak's looking at him, and he doesn't throw him the ball. And so you wonder, well, what kind of hot packages do they have? Dave brought it up. Nate brought it up. You wonder, well, are the Cowboys, they throw hot? Because it happened a couple of different times.
Yeah.
It happened to Ferguson on the other side when Udoka didn't block who he was supposed to block. And so, Ferguson was looking for the ball inside, like, I think I'm supposed to get this pass here. I think I'm supposed to get a hot read. And that's something, as we get into Detroit, it was going to be a little concerning to me, because Detroit is a very heavy linebacker blitz team. Angeloni, the linebacker,
Angeloni, big time blitzer.
He's I think he's got 26 pressures this year, which is the second most of any off-ball linebacker playing in the game today.
He's a really good pass rusher at the linebacker.
There you go. So now you're thinking, well, we'll see how it all plays out, but I do believe that they had some communication issues, and it's affected the way that they played. And it usually starts with the center. And I'm going to be real honest with you, Bobby, and I think you saw the All-22. It wasn't one of the best games for Tyler Biadasz.
No.
We all kind of focus on what happened with Udoka, but if you believe in metrics, I always say that, next gen stats, 39 dropbacks, 3 pressures is what they had, for Udoka, but I guarantee you look inside of what happened at center, it told a far different story. That everybody focusing on the tackle, the center didn't play particularly well, and he had been playing very well.
Yeah.
This was a tough game for him inside with Wilkins and stuff. So, but yes, I really appreciate Nate and Coach explaining and walking us through, because that's exactly what they're dealing with right now on the road. And it's clear that there's been some times where protection hasn't been as nearly clean as it is when they play at AT&T Stadium.
Hopefully something that the Cowboys can clean up as they head into the postseason, where they could be facing several road games here.
Right.
It's definitely something that will be an issue, a continued challenge for them as they move along. You're listening to the Love the Star podcast, Love the Stars and Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast. All right, Brian, this Detroit Lions team comes to AT&T Stadium with an 11-4 record. They have clinched the NFC North. They've had a really, resurgent run here with Dan Campbell. You were here in Dallas when Dan Campbell was here, right?
Yeah, I was actually in Detroit. I was actually Green Bay, Detroit, the last time they won the what was then the NFC Central. I believe is what we weren't even the North. We were the NFC Central.
Yeah, that was when it was
Tampa Bay. We had Tampa Bay in the division. So Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit, and Tampa. So that was kind of and then had to go play a playoff game at the old Silverdome. So
Did you ever have the impression, and I don't know how much you would have been around Dan Campbell at the time, but did you ever have an impression of Dan Campbell of like, oh, that's a future coach right there when he was in Dallas?
You know what? Danny was always a man. He was really a student of the game, but rough, tumble. The personality. What you see of Dan right now is that's exactly what he was as a player. I mean, it was really important to him. As a player, he was, like I say, super tough, super smart. At times, you felt like that, like maybe he was like He was like he was like they always talk about the bull in the china shop, just kind of banging around and causing havoc and stuff like that. But very, very respected player. But it's funny. Some of these guys, I would have never dreamed that Dan would be the type of head coach he is. But you would say that maybe Dan could be a position coach and be that type of guy. But boy, he is totally developed into the thing about Dan is they started off so poorly last year and then they finished so well and they've had a great season this season. but it's really about him and that stick-to-iveness. And I guess I might have just made up a word, but
I know what you're saying, though.
He's one of those guys that you kind of like. You would think that maybe he's like high school Harry with all the sayings and all that stuff, but he really is a believer of staying with the plan. Just bonding together and finding ways to win, and that's what his football team. They're a team that plays very much to the echo of the whistle. And I mean that in a respectful way, because when you're dealing with a guy like, and we'll get into, with Hutchinson and stuff like that, you better block their players through the whistle, because if you don't, they will make plays. They're just that good of a team.
It's funny, Dan Campbell being here in Dallas, you know what my memory as a young Cowboys fan was of Dan Campbell? You know what sticks out to me of his time here?
What's that?
The lone touchdown that he caught against the Buffalo Bills in a 10-6 football game that I think was y'all to 7-2.
Yeah.
And you know what also sticks out to me about that game, Brian? Do you remember who iced the game with a 17-yard run on third down? Adrian Morrell.
Adrian Morrell did.
A lot of people don't even remember Adrian Morrell was with Dallas, but he was here for a minute.
Adrian Morrell, the old was he a Jet, right? When he was
it was Jets? A person. He was one of those as the Dallas media used to call him FOBs, friends of Bill. He was a friend of Bill Parcells.
Yeah, I couldn't remember who exactly. It's funny, like Dave Campa, we interviewed him today on 105.3 The Fan, and I remembered Fred Strickland, like an obscure linebacker we had in Green Bay that ended up playing in Dallas. Yeah. And Dave goes, I can't remember the linebacker, and I go, Fred Strickland, and he goes, yeah, Fred Strickland. So, yeah, but Adrian Morrell, I actually remember one of the first times I ever went scouting in my life. Two schools I went to. I went to Iowa and then to West Virginia, and Adrian Morrell was at West Virginia. I remember scouting him. But man, it seems like ages ago. And it was ages ago.
I mean, even in 2003, Adrian Morrell was barely hanging on in the NFL at that point. Brian, let's talk about this Detroit Lions offense. We'll talk about the defense on tomorrow's episode. But when you take a look at this offense, what really stands out to you? I know for me watching them, they're really strong in the trenches. I know that just like any offensive line, it's not always perfect. There are spots where maybe you can take advantage of some things, but man, I feel like together as a unit, they play really solid, in pass protection and in the run game. I think that this is going to be an offensive line that's going to give the Cowboys some trouble.
Well, I kind of feel like with Detroit, when you look at them though, it's to me, Penny Sewell, he was drafted when he was 20 years old. He's now in his third year in the league, and he's your right tackle. And the thing about him is that there have been some times in games that you've watched that I've studied where he's just so outside dominant, kick, and he's in. But then sometimes people take him inside, and there's a little bit of a struggle there. Those
Euro steps, those little hop steps.
Yeah. But I tell you where
swim.
I think, Bobby, where you really need to make some hay against this Detroit offensive line, if you can, it's on the left side with two former Buckeyes with Jonah Jackson and then Taylor Decker over there. When you watch them play, you could tell that Jackson, the guard, always has his eye on what's going on with Taylor Decker, because Taylor Decker is a really good athlete, but he doesn't have much power.
Yeah, I was about to say, Decker can struggle with power. You can rush to his chest.
You can absolutely. He gets very upright, and all of a sudden, I've seen people walk him straight to the quarterback.
Yep.
And so there's times where Jackson, if you put guys on Jackson to make him have to block, and then he can't pay attention to or help Decker, that might be something that you see the Cowboys try to do in this game. Cover up Jackson, the guard, and then make Decker play one-on-one. That would be what I would have to do, because his eyes are always to the outside. And and then I noticed with Jackson, the guard, he struggled when they tacked his left shoulder. So his left shoulder, his outside shoulder, when teams attack that shoulder, he tended to have a little bit more of a problem. So I feel like that the right side of their offensive line is really good. Ragnow, the center, is coming back from some injuries and stuff like that, but still, he's really, really good. I was really wrong about him. I kind of thought he was more of a third-round guy, much like what they did with Travis Frederick, same kind of. But, both guys really close, what we call belly-to-belly blockers, grab you, second level, scoops, reach, don't get knocked on the ground kind of thing. But if Dallas is going to put pressure on Goff, I think it's going to come off the left side. It'll be the left side of the Detroit offensive line, the right side of the Dallas Cowboys defense.
A lot of people had thrown dirt on Jared Goff when the Rams moved on from him. And it was almost kind of like, well, that's an indictment. If Sean McVay thinks I need a different quarterback to come in here, it felt like it was just the, well, if Sean McVay rejects you, then you must not have much of it. But, man, he's been really good in Detroit these last couple of years. And, I think he's found himself a little bit. Sean McVay is kind of famous for kind of talking in his ear up until the 15-second mark. But I think he's kind of found himself, and the Lions have let him, Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, they've done a good job fostering an environment for him to be a difference maker. But he's somebody who can absolutely hurt the Cowboys with his ability, trusts his ability to fit the ball in some tight spaces. Sure does. And there will be an opportunity, I think, for you to generate some turnovers in this one.
Yeah, but this is what's interesting about Goff. If you look at all the metrics, and man, I'm having fun learning about metrics, and I'm learning things. There's things that pop out when you talk about Jared Goff. He's playing at a really high level, and you can't compare his numbers with Dak Prescott's, and they're both pretty much right on par with each other. When Dak's a little less on the interceptions and stuff like that. But I'll say this: I learned this. There's three quarterbacks in the National Football League this year that have not thrown an interception against man coverage, and Jared Goff is one of them.
And this is a man-heavy team, the Cowboys.
Exactly. Baker Mayfield, and Will Levis are the only other two quarterbacks in the league that have not thrown an interception against man coverage. Your Cowboys play 46.7% man coverage. So we will see. We will see where as they say, the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Will you get into a situation where they play more zone coverage? You're absolutely right about Goff, though. He will fit the ball in between like really narrow windows. And he's got some receivers that aren't afraid to go get the ball. And he's got a legitimate tight end as well. But I will say this. He's also thrown the second most interceptions in the league when he's been pressured. So the key for him, or the key for the Cowboys, I want to say, is all about the pressures. The pressures affect the way. There used to be a time, and the Chicago Bears played these guys great twice, and the game they won in Chicago was really. It used to be where you could get, and not used to be. I think there's still something to it. There was a time, and again, still I think, where Goff playing outside and cold was like death to him. Anything that
small hands.
Yeah, when he played two gloves on, hand warmer, all the geared up stuff that he had to do, that was like death to him. But he's had some pretty good numbers of working against blitzes this year, which is another thing. Dallas likes to bring the blitz. If you look at the previous 5 games, he's 52 of 78 for 497 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. But pressures, have given him some problems in the past, and given some problems this year. So they throw a ton of crossing routes at you. That's 15% of their routes are crossing routes. That's the most in the National Football League. So you got him and St. Brown. St. Brown is one of the most. I mean, you talk about a reliable. He's like a practice player on a Thursday when they throw the ball and it doesn't hit the turf. Yeah. You just keep throwing him the ball. He is that kind of guy. He is a special player, and that's it's been super impressive to watch him play, and then to watch him develop, and not to mention these backs they have too. You know, I mean, it's
Gibbs and Montgomery are really good.
They are really, and the thing about their when you watch these backs is they're one of the best in the league when it comes to yards after contact. These guys have amassed over 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards, which is only behind the Dolphins when it comes to yards after contact. So, the Dolphins were pretty predominantly heavy outside run. You're going to get a pretty balanced, group here when it comes to they're like 57% of their runs are going to be to the outside. And it's mainly to the strong side is what they like to run to. But another thing too, Bob, if I could tell you this also, I'm totally nerding out right now.
No.
About golf. But they will use an extra blocker. We're all familiar with Dan Skipper. They're 6'10", great guy. Met him a couple. And Dan Skipper's a great human being.
Got into a great training camp fight.
Yeah, exactly. He's like the extra lineman. The last time we saw extra blocker, extra lineman, Buffalo. So maybe we'll see maybe we'll see a little bit more Dan Skipper when they were running the football. Buffalo went extra blocker. Dan Skipper's an extra blocker. But this team likes to run the ball. Just a little key to look at. And let's see if they break the tendency this week. They like to run the ball when golf is under center. That's like 69% of the time.
Nice.
That's fourth most in the NFL right now. So when you see golf under center, and they like to give their backs, the reason they do it is they like to give their backs an opportunity to the ball to be brought to them and then them to attack and then to run, instead of being like in a sidecar where they hand it to them and then they have to run from that, or pistol where they turn. But they like to be able to give them the ball coming downhill. So you see golf under center, that's a pretty good indication that they're going to run the football.
Lots of great details there on the running game, St. Brown, Goff, the offensive line, everything like that. Before we get to the mailbag, your thoughts on what you've seen from Sam Laporta at this point? I know Justin Stuckey, one of the Cowboys scouts, came in, talked to us on DallasCowboys.com and said, man, that one hurt a little bit. That kind of hurt my spirit to see Sam Laporta get picked. Cowboys were fans of his, but he's been fantastic for them.
Yeah, I talked to some guys in the front office this week and about that, and I followed up because remember, Bobby, when we were working on the draft, we were hearing whispers about Laporta. Remember, it's like Dallas could take Laporta with pick 26. They could take him, and we were all like, "Wow, really? Wow!" That, it was kind of that name that you heard literally when we're sitting there at the Star at Frisco working to rework the draft. And Laporta, and I'd gotten some word that Mike McCarthy, Lunda Wells, and then you mentioned Mitch Stuckey or
Justin Stuckey.
Was involved. I mean, they were really, and so that's, but just real quick about him, he it doesn't look so bad now if they were to take him in the first round. I mean, the way he's playing, they use him in a great way. They really, really do. He's a tough player. His routes are really good. He's a mismatch kind of guy. He's got strength. He's got speed. He's soft-handed. He's got a good catch radius. He does lead the team in drops, though. He's had 6 this year. But, he catches the ball. He's like a bulldozer with the ball in his hands. He's, effort as a run blocker. I think he needs to improve his sustain a little bit. But when you talk about a red zone weapon, he's, been targeted 4 times, 3 catches down the red zone, touchdown machine. He's got 9 of those, which is the second most on the squad. So he's a guy you're definitely going to have to account for throughout this game. The wheel routes, and they set plays up for him. And so you have to be really mindful of that.
You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. It's where we turn things over to our dear, sweet listeners to get their thoughts, take their questions, and find out the things that are really tickling their brains this week. Brian, first question here. This is from the Stargazer on Twitter. Why has Mozzie Smith dropped a significant amount of weight when we drafted him to be our one tech behind Hankins?
How about that? I asked a question, and thank you very much. I said that on the Cowboy Break 2 days ago, and because I was asking the question about Mozzie Smith, about the I asked this guy, see, he looks smaller. He looks smaller on tape. And I go, am I missing something here? He looks small. And the guy said, yeah, he's lost a significant amount of weight. And I said, well, how is he? He says, well, he's down under 300 pounds, and this, I was like, oh, okay. I don't quite understand. I don't have a great answer for you why he's lost weight. I mean, you have a defensive line group that is very mindful of their weight. And now, maybe it was a situation where he was trying to lose weight to play more next to Hankins, to play maybe a little bit more under tackle. I don't know anybody in the organization that said, hey, Mozzie, you need to lose weight. But he is significantly lighter than when he was drafted out of Michigan. And you kind of wonder, well, yeah, he was drafted to be that 318-pound tackle, that nose tackle, that one technique. But we're far, far from that. He's very much like you, Bobby, and your soda program that you're on here in 105.3.
SOTAweightloss.com.
Yeah. And, check it out. It's a good way to lose weight. But he's had a significant weight loss, and he's not nearly as big as he was when he was drafted. And I don't know, and I don't have a great answer for you why the Cowboys are allowing him to play well under 300 pounds.
Do you think there's any possibility that has to do with? It feels like when he's slow off the ball, a lot of times it's a reaction. But do you think it has anything to do with needing to be quicker off the ball?
I don't know if you would drop almost 40 pounds to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of. Well, I mean, what was his weight coming in? I mean, was he 330?
330 or something?
Yeah. Well, he's not that anymore. He's not that. So yeah. I think that to me it's maybe they're talking about, hey, you need to be a little bit quicker, but he is not the guy. He is not the guy that you drafted weight wise. I think Mozzie at times has played really, really well. I've said this a bunch. I've been on record. When he doesn't read the snap, when he doesn't see the snap and plays slow, he gets blocked every time. You can just count on him getting blocked. When he's off on the snap with everybody else, he can be a very difficult guy to block. But yeah, they've allowed this weight loss, and I don't have a great answer for it. I know I've said that 5 times now.
Next question from actually our teammate at 105 The Fan, Justin Honore. Justin says, when it comes to facing these too high shell defenses the Cowboys have faced in recent weeks, do you think they make life easier for the defense with their lack of variation of route depth, especially on 3rd and 7 and longer?
We talking about the Cowboy offense?
Yes.
All right, I did. Pardon my paper flipping going on here right now, but I did something, and I got to put this together. I did all the split safety stuff, with Dak,
Yep.
like passing versus zone, and I came up with 233 completions on 329 attempts at 70.8, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 6.86 per. I was trying to see about that, and Justin's asking about the too high, right?
Yep. Asking about too high, and does that make life easier for the opposing defense because of the lack
too high? The too high bad games for Dak. Mm-hmm. The Giants in Week 1, he was 5-9 for 32 yards, no interceptions, no touchdowns. That was against too high.
Different offense back then, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then if we'll skip it down to 49ers. We all kind of 5 of 10, 44 yards, 1 interception against too high, right there.
Yep.
All right. Now he started kind of picking up after the Chargers game. Split safeties. He was 9 of 15 for 152 yards, no interceptions, no touchdowns. Right. But okay, that was against the Chargers. Against the Rams, he was 10 of 13 for 83 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. That was split safety. Philadelphia, too high. 10 of 12, 122 yards, no touchdowns there. Hang on, let me go here. Okay, now the game, Carolina. Okay, there was a bad game. Too high safety. 6 of 10, 46 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. All against the split high. So, and then Buffalo got him. He was 12 of 22 for 85 yards and 1 interception.
Ugh.
Everything else, like he crushed Seattle. Too high safety, look, he was 19 of 23 for 183 yards, 1 touchdown. He was, Dolphins, 10 of 17, 67 yards, 1 touchdown. So A lot of completions, but he just wasn't going anywhere, right? You know?
Yeah.
And so I just like to say the too high look, you know, I counted 4 games, I think, where he was just not very good. The Giants game opening day, the 49ers game, we all know that was a disaster for the whole team. And then Carolina and Buffalo. And if you want to include Miami, of the 10 of 17 for 67, that's a pretty bad day at the office for him.
Well, last question here for HP before we wrap
Did I
things
answer
up.
that question enough?
Yeah, no, I think so. Question from HP here. More blame for CD not getting the ball for 2+ quarters against Miami, Dak or Mike?
I think he got creative. It's really easy to blame the quarterback here because he pulled the ball down a couple of different times. But I will say this, they got creative on a 3rd down play when they ran they actually motioned, they got in trips and motioned Tolbert away. This is after CD started off so well. So, you know, he goes that whole couple of quarters there with nothing going on. Mm-hmm. But then they finally okay, damn, let's get him the ball. Well, what did they do? They motioned, they got in a bunch formation, motioned Tolbert away, which made Howard have to take him. So then it bumped Howard out, and it put the nickel, the backup nickel.
Who?
No, the other one. Excuse me, I'm gonna cough here for a second. But the backup nickel, Hillman was in the game at the time. Number 40.
Yeah.
Was in the game. I wish I had written it down but I think his name was Hillman. But he's covering now. They run a vertical to clear, and then they put the ball behind the clear route for the 1st down. So that, you know, they got creative getting the ball back. Excuse me once again here.
Brian, see, I've given Brian.
Now I'm dealing with it. I'm sorry, folks, for coughing.
I've given
him a cup of water here. I got to get that taken care of. But anyway, they finally found ways to where before they were taking advantage of some of the matchups and coverage and running the routes. And then all of a sudden they kind of went away from that, and I don't think it was anything drastic that Vic Fangio did, or they tried to double him or anything like that. They passed him through some zones a couple of times. But Mike has got to find a way to get his guy the ball. And that's play calling to me. Now, you know, Dak under pressure situation, maybe not too comfortable with what's going on at left tackle, you know, but I don't know. I would say that, because I did see the coach, you know, after he'd gotten him the ball, just down after down after down, had to create something for him to get him the ball on 3rd down, and he makes a play, and then now all of a sudden he's back in the game. So That's a little bit on the coach right there, I think.
That does it for us here today on the Love the Star podcast.
We're a mess right now, aren't we?
Man, like I'm struggling through my voice, but we're going to get through one more episode, Brian. That's what we're going to do. We're going to preview the Lions defense on the next episode. Also, take a look at these injuries and preview this game, pick this game between the Cowboys and the Lions. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We'll talk to you guys again next time.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.